Hi, my name is James Thomas. I'm an analyst at SumProduct's, and today for EVG, I'm going to go through our Final Friday Fix blogs that we post on our website every month. So click on this Insights tab and go down to blog. Scroll down and you'll on the categories, you'll see Final Friday Fix, and this will sort out all the Final Friday Fix blogs for you. So basically, Final Friday Fix are Excel challenges. Um, they're kind of inspired by issues or problems that we encounter while doing modeling or projects. And so we put those challenges into blog form and see if you guys can do them. So so for example, like if we click into August, um, you'll see that this is the challenge. So basically, we have to find every last weekday in each month, and you need to usually in these challenges, you need to do it in one formula. So in one cell. So no helper cells, no extra programs like VBA. So just one calculation in Excel that will spill out all the values, um, and basically in one formula you'll complete this challenge. So today I'm going to go through September, which is not out at the time of this recording. Um, I'm going to go through August, and I'm going to go through March. So maybe you guys have done it. And for those who haven't, welcome to the Final Friday Fix blogs. Definitely in the last 6 months to a year, I've enjoyed writing them. So hopefully you'll enjoy listening to me go through the challenges with you. Just to add, because these blogs come out on the last Friday of every month, we come out with the challenge, obviously not the solution. The solution comes out on the next Monday. So basically, if you follow the same steps and you sort the blogs out by Monday morning mulling, that's what it's called, Monday morning mulling, you'll get all the Monday morning mulling blogs, which are the solutions to the Final Friday Fix, and it'll go through what the challenge was. It'll give you the Excel files. So this is the question file and this is the solution file. So you can get both the question and both the solution. So you can copy paste the formula or dig into it more deeply. And it will go through in the blog itself. It'll go through the solutions with screenshots and formulae and all this. So it's very interesting. And as I said, um, I really enjoy writing these. So hopefully you can yeah, get some enjoyment too. So this is our first challenge. It's called returning select data, and well, it will be the challenge for September. So basically, if you look here, this is the data that we give you here. It's a table of ID numbers, dates, stores, items, amount invoiced, and amount paid. And then we tell you or ask you to take these IDs and return all of this data in one formula on cell E26. So type in one formula and that'll spill out all the data from this table regarding these IDs. Now, obviously, if you look at the given table, there's 10 IDs um, with with data, um, and we've asked you to do it with only 5 IDs. So somehow you're gonna have to automatically separate the data from these IDs out from this table. So basically, if we put our cursor on E26, we start this by pressing equals, obviously. And so this formula might produce some errors. If you look at the bottom ID, it says ID 100. And there's no ID 100 in the main table, so that'll cause an error. So we start off with accounting for that error. We type in the formula um, if no, yeah, and then we go into the value. The formula that we came up with, actually it produces um, kind of defunct column. It produces an extra ID column, so we want to get rid of that ID column. So we'll start with another function like ifna, kind of a function that is not part of the main formula, but will sort of produce it in a way that um, is what we want. So we use the drop formula, which will drop that extra column that will be produced by our formula. And now we go into the main the main formula. And so basically, I mean, I use this formula a lot, especially for work and projects, um, in regards to getting data that I need from other sheets or wherever. And that is the index formula. It's very useful and and used a lot. Um, and that comes with the index match combination. Um, but first, before we put in the match, we have to sort of select the array, and that's the whole kind of table without the headings. So select the whole table without the headings, and then comma, and then we enter in our match. Um, and so the lookup value is going to be our the IDs we want to return the data from. The lookup array is going to be these IDs here from the master table, and the match type we have to type in a match type. I've done this a few times where I've kind of left no value after that comma, and that'll usually leaving no value will return 0 automatically, but in this case it'll return 1, which means that it'll find values less than, and you don't want that, so you have to kind of put that 0 in this time, in this case, and then you put another comma here. So that's that match formula done. Um, and that match deals with the rows. So that'll spill out all the rows necessary, all the rows of the data. Um, and now we have to kind of work with the columns, and that's done with the sequence function. So sequence here, and and the sequence function goes into the column section of the index formula. So you see how there's the column number here. So the match is the row number, and the column number would be found with this sequence formula here. Um, so we want to put 1 where the rows are, and we want to use counter, which will just find which will count any cells with anything in it. So it doesn't have to be numbers. Like if you use count, it'll only count cells with numbers in it. So counter, it'll count cells with anything in it, which in this case we need because we are going to count the number of headings, that we have in order to return, in order to return, um, in order to spill out all the data from all the columns that we have. So we close those brackets. For the drop function, we want to put 2 commas, and we want to drop columns, so we don't want to drop any rows. We only want to drop columns, and to drop the first column, we just type in 1 here. And then now we're dealing with the ifna function. So basically, we have the value, and the value is everything after that drop function, or everything after the first bracket. So the drop function on. So we have our value there, and then we press comma. And so what we're doing here, we're dealing with that ID 100, which will return errors because there's no ID 100 in the table, in the master table. Um, so yeah, if we run this formula without that ifna function, it'll just return errors. Um, so in place of hash NA, we want um, these commas. We want no text basically, and then we close that bracket, and there you go. That's the solution. So yeah. Um, notice notice how I only use one formula. And I used a lot of, I mean, with these challenges, if you do them enough, you'll kind of sort of get a hint on what formulas you might go to first. Especially when you're talking about spilling, like this sequence function, you'll see. I'm pretty sure throughout all three um, all three Final Friday fixes that I'm going through. So that sequence function, it kind of just spills out everything, um, and it makes it, it's a very simple function to sort of get a hold of, and it makes it very practical when you're talking about spilling across rows, across columns. Um, and yeah, so that's the first that's the first challenge, and that's the first solution. So on to the next one. Okay, on to the second challenge. We're going to move on to now August, and I can actually show you how to access it through the website, because at the time of recording, it has been published, unlike the September one that I just went through. Um, yeah, so you come down and um, you sort the blogs by Final Friday Fix, and you'll get all the Final Friday Fix blogs, like I explained before. And at the top, you'll get the latest one, and so that's what we're looking through today, or this time around. Um, and you'll get the article. So basically, with this challenge, you want to find every working, every last working date of each month in 2025. Uh, and how you do that, like before, you can't use any helper cells, and you can't use any like external programs like VBA or Power Query. And usually, like if you're looking through these blogs, you just click the link here, and you'll get the Excel file. You'll save it on the on your desktop. But I've already got it up, so there it is. So with this challenge, we've given you the year, so you can use that hard-coded year cell in your formula. And also, there are two solutions, um, one given by my boss and one given by my manager. So I'll go through those right now, and they're actually quite simple. Um, so you press equals, um, and then the first function you're going to use is workday. Um, so basically, the workday function um, does what its name suggests. It returns the date of the working day that you choose, and the arguments, um, start date and days. So start date, if you just put the start date in that workday argument, um, it'll just return the next working day. Um, and also in that days argument, and I should note that in this recording you can't actually see the arguments. I don't know why OBS is kind of weird like that, but basically when I talk about start date days within this function, those are the arguments within the function. So start date, if you put the start date in there, it'll return the next working day. And if you add in the next argument, which is days, if you add, 1, 2, 3 or whatever, like let's say the start date is a Wednesday, and you add 1, it'll return the Thursday. Um, so yeah, so for the start date argument, you want to use the date function, um, and in the date function you have the arguments year, month, and day. So for the year, you want to use this reference here, so E10, comma, and um, like the first challenge, like I mentioned, sequence shows up again. Uh, as I said, it's very easy, simple to use, and it kind of allows you to fulfill, what this challenge asks, which is the one formula in the one cell. So it'll just spill out all the values that you need. So sequence. Um, so for the rows argument, because we want it to spill downward, Um, we're basically going to put the number of months here because we want it for every month, and then we close bracket. And then for this formula in particular, so we're going to have those 12 months, but what we're trying to do is um, we're trying to subtract from the next month. So we're going to have like the first date or the first day of the next month, like let's say February, and we're going to subtract down into the last working day of the last month. So we want to add a +1 here. So basically the first month will actually be February and the last month will be January of the next year, and we'll subtract down to get the last working days, the last working dates of the last month. So that's why we add that +1 there, and we just put 1 as the day. Um, that'll give us like first of February, 1st of March, etc. And then we press the comma here, and we want to subtract down 1 day, and that goes into that workday function. So we're going to find the first day of the next month, and then we're going to subtract by one working, and we're going to subtract by down to find the working day that came before the last working day that came before the first day of the next month. God, that's a mouthful. So that's the formula right there, and we press enter. And we should get those dates. We've got to change the formatting here so we can see. And there you go. So if we come back to our articles, press Monday morning mailing. Oh, actually, I could have gone into the final Friday fix, but anyway. And cross-reference those dates. Yep, yep, that's correct. So that's the first solution already done. It's quite easy. Now onto the second solution, which I feel is a bit more complex than the first solution. It's longer, and it is more complex. I mean, it has more functions, more variables, but to be honest, I like it more just because I'm a mathematician. So, and this formula is very, it uses um, like common university level mathematics. So, um, and what I'm talking about here is basically um, the let function. Uh, so the let function allows us to create variables and then create calculations with those variables. So we're gonna have for this challenge, we're gonna have two variables. We're gonna have variable x, which is going to be the end date of every month. Unlike last time, which was the first date of the next month, and then we subtracted down from that. We're going to subtract down from the last date of the current month. Um, so that's the x variable here. We put in the variable. And as you notice, I got OBS to display the arguments now. So you can see what I'm talking about when I talk about the name1, name value1 arguments. So that's good. Um, so we put in the x variable and we press comma. And then we want to find a function that will find the end of month date, and that is EO month, which is given by the name. And then, like before, we want to use the date function um, in this start date argument. And basically, we use the date function because it's just very, it's just very structured year, month, day, very simple um, and easy to use, kind of like sequence, um, but this is for dates, and it just allows us to display dates, in a very structured manner. So the year, like before, is going to be this year cell E10, comma, and what do you know? In the month argument, sequence is going to show up once again. But unlike last time, we're not going to add that +1 because we don't want like February to be the first date and subtract down. So no +1 this time. Um, Bracket and 1. So yep, that's so that the date function is going to basically spit out the first date of every month, and then that year month function is going to find the last date of that month. And then brackets here and 0, because we don't want to add any months to this date. We're already in the month that we want. And then we're in the let function now, so we want to start with this y variable. And basically the y variable is going to be the subtractor. And to do that, we use the weekday function. And so basically, with this weekday function, what we want to do is we want to classify every day of the week, so Monday through Sunday, with its own classification number. And weekday will allow us to do that. And so we already have an end date, and that is X. So that's already been defined. And then we put a bracket here, sorry, a comma. And notice how this tab comes up. And this is why I had to get OBS working for this, because it's very important. Yeah, so basically these are classifications of days of the week. So if we put one in that argument, in that return type argument, we'll get Sunday will 1 will represent Sunday, 2 will represent Monday, 3 will represent Tuesday, and so on. If we put in number 2, 1 will represent Monday, 2 will represent Tuesday, and etc. etc. So what we want is we want Saturday to be represented by 1, and we want Sunday to be classified as 2. So that if the last day of the month lands on a Saturday or a Sunday, then we can subtract it from its classification number back to the last working day of that month. So if it lands on a Saturday, Saturday is classified as 1, so we can just subtract by its own classification back down to Friday. So Saturday minus 1 day is Friday, and Sunday, which will be classified as 2, Sunday minus 2 minus its own classification minus 2 will be subtracted back down to Friday, and that Friday, if the Saturday or the Sunday is the last day of the month, that Friday will be the last working day of the month. So if you look at this list of numbers 1, 2, 3, 11, 12, we actually want to pick 16 because that means that Saturday will be classified as 1, Sunday will be classified as 2, and all the rest of the days will be classified as 3 to 7. So we want to put 16 here, and then close that bracket. Yep, close that bracket, and then comma, and now we want to, in the let function now, again, we have our variables, so we want to put the calculation together. So we start by the last date of the month, which is X, we've already defined that, minus. And now, if the last date of the month um, is a working day, then we don't want to do anything to it. You know, it's already fine. Uh, it's already done. We don't need to do anything. But if it lands on a weekend, then we want to, as I said before, we want to subtract. So we subtract, and we use the if statement. Um, if if y if y, so the classification of the days, if it's greater than 2, then we don't subtract anything. So we can just put bracket bracket. but if it is less than 2, then we want to subtract the day from its classification number, which has been defined. So bracket bracket, we close off the let function, and we should have our solution here. And there you have it. So check, yep, seems all good. And that's our second solution. So it's a bit more complex. However, it's a bit more creative, so I like it. Anyway, onto the third, challenge. This is the third Final Friday Fix blog that I'm going to be going through today. Um, it's the challenge for March, and it's actually the first Final Friday Fix that I ever wrote. And it's probably the hardest Final Friday Fix that has ever been written. So, and that's because what we're trying to do is quite difficult. We're trying to take this data table of groups and their respective values, and we're trying to change it into this form down here. So we have them in numerical value. We have them. We have the group name and the value, the corresponding value concatenated. We have a comma for where for where the values are not sequential. So um, group A doesn't have 2, so you have that comma there to demonstrate um, that jump. And then for where the numbers are sequential, you want a dash, and you also don't want to include that extra A. It's a very um, detailed kind of transition from that yellow table to the bottom table that we're trying to achieve here. um, Also, this formula does has elements to it that does not work in any other version other than Microsoft 365, so that's why I'm using the online version. Um, and because it's so complex, because the formula is so large, I'm going to be going through it in steps, and then I'll post the solution at the end. So to begin, we press equals, and we want to separate out all the unique groups from that group array. So right now there's 5 A's, there's 5 B's, there's 5 C's. So we want to separate out, so it's just 3 rows A, B, C. And we do that using the unique function. And we select that array there, close the brackets, and there you go. So that separates out all the unique groups. And now we want to separate out all the unique values. Um, for this demonstration, I'm only going to go through group A. So I'm just going to create the formula for group A. So to get all the unique values for group A, we have to first use the sort function. That'll put all the values in numerical order, which is essential for the end result that we want to achieve. And then we want to use the unique function. Like as before, we want to separate out all the unique values, so we use the unique function. And then we want to use the filter function, and that'll basically filter for only a related values. And to achieve that, for the first argument, for the array argument, we select the value column, comma, and then we select the group column, and we say that if the group is equal to A, G11 in this case, then print those numbers. And so there you go. You have the unique values and only corresponding to A. And now moving on to the range flag. Basically, the purpose of this column is to identify when the unique values in column H aren't sequential. So essentially, when values aren't like 3, 4, 5, um, but they're like 1 to 3, for example. So we want to identify those occurrences. Um, that's so later on, when we build a bigger formula, um, we can add in those dashes and the commas where appropriate. So first off, we select um, we select the array, the unique values array, and then basically the idea is we want to take a number and then subtract that number. In this case, the unique value. We want to take the unique value and subtract by the unique value that came before it. So for example, if we're looking at 4, the unique value 4, what the unique value that became before it was 3. So 4 minus 3 will equal 1. Um, and basically what we're looking for is that subtraction is greater than 1. So if we look at 3, the number that came before it is 1, so that subtraction will equal 2, which will interact with our later formulas and tell it that those numbers weren't sequential. So we have that we have that selected array, um, and then we have to now sort of build that subtraction, and we do that by using VStack. um, for the first array, we want it to start at 0, so we want it to start at a neutral point. Um, that way, when we look at the unique value 1, it doesn't have a preceding value. So we don't want that to be affected. So the first value in the VStack will be 0. And because we chose 0, it'll have an extra row. So we want to take away that row. And we do that, like I believe in the first solution, we use the drop function. Um, so the array is the unique values array, and we want to drop, I believe, the last row. So we type in -1, and that should give us the range flag. So as you can see here, um, there's obviously no jump from the unique value 1 and what came before it, because there's no number before it, so you get 1. But as you can see, with 3, there is a jump from the preceding value before it, so you get 2. Um, and so that'll interact with our later formulas. Anything that's not 1 will be considered as a new group. And that basically takes us onto the group index, which is our next formula, which is the formula that only works in Microsoft 365, which is the scan function. The initial value will be 0, and that's just obviously the starting point, like before, and comma, and then you want to take the range flag array, and you want to check to see if the range flag will be greater than 1. So you put that in there, and you press a comma, and now you want to see what you want to enter in what function you want the scan function um, to use. In this case, this will be sum. So we put that there. You don't need to do that. And then press enter. And there you go. The group index is so 0 is obviously the first group because that's the initial the initial value. But with this jump, it creates a new group, which is 1. And if there was another jump, let's say you have a unique value 7 or 8, after 5, it'll print 2 like this. So that it indicates a new group basically. Going back to this sum function, what you're trying to do is you're trying to sum every number, um, every range flag that is greater than 1. So if you see in this argument here, we're checking to see if the value in the range flag is greater than 1, and we're summing um, 1 to create that group index. So that explains that scan function use. Now for the last formula, this will bring in everything that we've done previously. So um, it'll take in the unique groups, the unique values, and the group index to basically create that concatenated, nice and neat um, sort of text configuration that was the point of this challenge. To remind you, here is the table. So that's what we're trying to create in this last formula. And to do that, we first use the array to text function. So basically, the group by function that we're going to use in this formula will create certain formatting that we don't want. Um, so it'll create semicolons, and we don't want those semicolons. So array to text sort of puts it into that exact formatting that we want. And then the next function will be drop. Like array to text, drop will be dealing with the group by function. And basically the group by function will, because we're using that group index with the unique values, because we need to classify the unique values into a unique group, not the unique group in column G, but this unique group here, the group index, it will generate not only the unique values in the group index, but it will generate the group index itself. So we want to drop that part of the output. So we use drop, and then we move into the group by part of the function, and this is the meat of the function. And so basically for the first 2 arguments, we want to select column J, which is the group index. This is what is known as the key, or basically the unique group. And that'll be with its respective unique value. So group by has a values argument, and that's what we're going to be focusing on, the values argument. And the unique values will go into that values argument. And the group by function will automatically pair the unique group indexes with their respective unique values. So group index 0, the group by function will group that with the unique value 1, and group index 1 will go with unique values 3, 4, and 5. And that'll be fed into this lambda equation. Oops. And so we want to call the group index unique value combination. We want to call that group, comma. And so basically this is where we set up that nice text formatting style. And to do that, we first select the first value, which is the unique group A. So if you see here, A is the first value, so we want that to come first. And then we type in ampersand. And next to A, we want the first number. So the first A, we want the first number of that group index. and that is achieved by this at group. And then space, and then we add that another ampersand in, and this will deal with what comes after um, the first unique group, unique value combination in that unique group index, and it's either going to be a dash or it's going to be nothing. So for example, in this A1, it's nothing. It's going to be nothing. But in this A3 example, there's going to be a dash because there's an A4, and so we need to set that up. So after this second ampersand, we type in this if equation, and so if rows if the number of rows in the group we've named group equals 1, then we don't want anything afterwards. So those speech commas, we want nothing afterwards. But if it's not 1, then we want a dash. And what comes after that dash? Ampersand again, and we want the maximum value of the group. So again, if we go back, we will have this group index. If the if statement is false, we'll have that dash, and we want the maximum value of that group index. So that's what that is there. And then we close up the equation here. That one is just for the drop function. So we want to drop, as I said, that first column, the keys column, which is pertaining to J11. So we don't want that group index in there. So we drop it using that one. Close the brackets, press enter, and there you go. There's the end result. So to check, there's an A1, there's no A2, so A2 is not there, and then we have a nice comma, and then we have A3, A4, A5, and there's no, as I said, there's no 2, and there's nothing above 5 in that A group. So there you go. That's the result. So now moving on to how to put all of that together. So how do I create that end result for all groups A, B, and C? And I said at the beginning that it was going to be a pretty complex formula, and there it is. Um, so yeah, it's quite complex. It's quite big. It brings basically, if we look at this result column here, it brings everything. Um, it brings all those groups together. So that result column had, um, the scan function, uh, array to text, sort, unique filter. It had all those functions. And basically what this big function does is it brings it all together. And it basically does that by using map. And so um, map um, takes all those unique groups. So if you see here, unique table group, um, that'll just produce this column in the formula, and map will apply the formula that we gathered here to all those unique groups. And so that's the result. And yeah, that concludes the video for today. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that every month we come out with these Final Friday Fix blogs. So every month you can kind of dive in to these challenges that we put up there. Um, and you can be sure that every month after that, we'll be posting these blogs. So, you know, click them open, enjoy them, and we'll keep them coming. Um, Thanks for watching.